Welcome back to Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast. And we told you we're going to continue to share life experiences. We have another amazing guest, Miss Carly. She's going to come up, introduce herself, and then, as you know, City Sid is going to kick off that first question. Welcome, Carly.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry for the mishap earlier. Ay, ay, ay. So happy to be present now. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so with all of our guests, we do like to start off at the beginning of your journey. Usually, that's how we can tie parallels to things that you maybe have experienced through life. So tell us a little bit about where and how you grew up, your home structure, family ties, and if you experienced any trauma in those years.
Absolutely. So I left the United States when I was 5 years old and I moved to South America. So I grew up from the ages of 5 to 14 in Mexico, Brazil, and Venezuela. There was a lot of abuse. There was sexual, verbal, and physical abuse. Um, and that was probably from like sixth grade on. And then I was born with congenital rubella syndrome, which affects all your organs, bones, and skin. My mother got it when she was pregnant with me. Um, and so those started in terms of like my medical complexness came from literally birth. And then all the abuse stuff more like in middle school into high school.
Okay, thank you, Carly. So we're going to start at childhood. We like to bring awareness, and this is useful or resource based for if anyone is going through anything. So, thank you for your transparency, Miss Carly. I want to start when you were younger. You went through sexual abuse. How were you, and when when did that start? How did that present itself?
Yeah, so I was in, well, I was in sixth grade, and a friend of a friend's, I used to go to this person's house all the time. Actually, his sister was my friend, and and one night he came in the room and dragged me out and took me into his room, and so that was my first experience of um, being raped, if you will, and yeah, and so that was my my first experience, which wasn't the most pleasant. I learned a lot. Uh, you just have to, it's one of those things where you have to put aside your mindset. You can't stay in the victim mode. You can't stay in the woe is me mode. You have to literally go through it and literally come out the other side, and play into it is the forgiveness of self and others, which is a big piece which most people that are survivors do not like to do, because I think if they're giving someone forgiveness, that they're forgiving the act, and that's not the case at all. That what they did is still wrong. You're forgiving the person and forgiving yourself, because that way you move forward and that person no longer has power over you.
Now, in that particular situation, how did that scenario pan out? How was he, kind of able to do that under the radar? Were you audible? How did you react? Like, what was the scenario around that happening? I mean, when you say dragged you out, like, was that quite literal, or what was the scenario around
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So it was the middle of the night. So Anna, my friend, was sleeping, and he literally put his hand over my mouth and did drag me out of the room. And she did, unfortunately, did not wake up. And yeah, so he dragged me into his room, and you have to understand that the kids' bedrooms are in South America. The houses are huge, and the parents' bedrooms are always like on the other like wing, if you will, and so they wouldn't have heard it anyway. And we were all the way down the other side of the house. So
Can I ask how old was he?
yeah,
Um,
so that was the other interesting part. So he was a senior I was at that point, I was in sixth grade.
Do you know if he did this to any of your friends, other
No, I
friends?
don't know if he did it to any of my friends. I do not know. I became an easy target after that because he blabbed off that, I was an easy score, which is a typical thing that happens when, a guy does something to someone. And I say typical, that's only been, it's people tend to brag about things like that. And it's just something that's a behavior. Um, so, yeah, I don't, to my knowledge, no. But I did become a target at that school because of him. And so that
So
wasn't my
you're in
first.
sixth grade and he's a senior.
Yeah.
How does that even look right?
Oh, of course, it doesn't look right. His sister was my friend. His sister was in the same grade as I was. And so I used to hang out with his sister. And then my parents traveled a lot, sometimes I stay over there. And I never had a problem before. That was the first time it had ever happened with him.
Did y'all remain friends, you and the sister?
No, no, because no one believed me. I'm sorry, my face, I moved. Uh, I told my brother and he didn't believe me, and I told my mother and they didn't believe me either. So it was just easier to stay silent. I told the nuns didn't believe me. So it was just easier for me to be silent and deal with it in my own way. And then as I got older, obviously, then I went and got real help. I got counselors and mentors and, joined a bunch of different survivor groups. Um, yeah, I did do all the work. Not to say that I'm totally healed now. Obviously, there's always bits and pieces that are remaining, whether you know it or not. Um, but all you can do is move forward. I mean, staying there doesn't help anyone. I tell everyone, it takes strength to reach out and ask for help. You can go to a church, you can ask a friend and talk to them and see if they're willing to have a confidential conversation. The whole thing is about opening our mouths and having the conversation. And too many of us that have been through abuse are petrified and do not say anything. And I, had the wake up call years later. And I basically got the help that I needed.
Now, were any of the thereafter experiences, connected to this one? Did anything happen to you in close proximity to that time, or how did the rumor around the school affect you?
So the room around the school just made me self isolate more, and I was already kind of a loner anyway. I always felt like I was different. I never felt like I fit in, and that was primarily because we moved schools so often, um, that and we changed countries, so it became harder when you're doing all that moving. Um, Trying to see what else, in that particular the other scenarios, basically was a particular experience that I got pulled behind the stage and had, like six guys pin me down, and that was a result of the other. And so after that experience, I totally kept my mouth shut, and it wasn't until I got older when I was brave enough to speak up.
Hold on. So six guys raped you in school.
Hmm.
Where was anybody? I mean, an adult at?
After school hours. The schools are different in South America. I mean, depending on, we went to private Catholic schools. Once school is over, like the nuns and whatnot, and usually it's after school. You're supposed to leave school. There's like most schools, there's a place where kids go off to smoke or do whatever. There were trails behind the school, and yeah, so it was common for people to do things.
How did that
But like I
affect
said,
you?
yeah, so I mean, it affected my confidence. Obviously, it affected my self-worth, um, and it affected my marriages because I was coming from a place of abuse and I perpetuated that abuse. In other words, my relationships were abusive, until I finally had that wake up call where I almost got killed. And after that, it was like no more. And I got the help that I needed.
Now, forgive me if I didn't catch it, but when you were going down the line of who you told this to, were your parents involved, or what role did they play or didn't play in this
No,
situation?
I didn't get my parents involved. They traveled a lot. And honestly, from my experience, they hadn't believed me when I said other things. So I was just always labeled the troubled child. And so it was just, you know, I, it goes back, my family, there's just a lot of trauma and, um, yeah, it just, it wasn't the best family unit. It was a wealthy unit, except it was a sad unit. Like most people think, oh, if you're wealthy, you go to private school, everything's going to be fine. Well, that's not necessarily so. It can happen to anyone in any economic status. And I think a lot of people need to remember that. It doesn't matter if you're poor or you're rich, things can happen to anybody. And being at that point where we lived there and there was the wealth, it and experiencing those types of things, there is that kind of disconnect because you don't think like things like that would happen, but they do. And you just have to choose to pick up and move forward.
How did that make you feel about your parents?
Um, they're both passed now, and that's why I'm actually willing to talk about these things. When he was pancreatic cancer when he was like 49 years old. My mother just passed away 2 years ago, so I haven't really talked about a lot of stuff until after my mom passed, just because I wanted to respect and honor them just for, my mother gave birth to me. She didn't have to. They told her to abort me. She had me. Am I necessarily, I spent years not thrilled with that idea because of all the stuff I experienced. And at some point you just have to let go and realize she did the best that she could with what she had. And I know she had trauma growing up, and I know my dad had trauma growing up. There was abuse on both sides. I did my own investigation and talking to different people and finding out what happened in the different families. And I heard stories anyway. So I always look at it as the people that are abusing. Yes, it's not right, obviously, and I don't condone it. I'm just saying that there's always something behind there that the trigger for them to do whatever they're doing is tied to their past. And again, it doesn't make it right. I'm just saying that's what kind of happens. You got generational abuse, you got generational poverty, you got generational wealth, right? Everything's generational. And so if there's been abuse in a prior generation, it takes a generation to break the cycle. I've had several other cousins pass away, OD, whatnot. And, you know, it's hard when you have a family that there's a lot of different issues, and you have to choose. If a family is not serving you, I don't care if it's blood or not, if it's going to make your life horrible, then I suggest disconnecting, because staying connected is not serving you and it's actually causing more harm. And so I did disconnect from my mother for quite a while, actually for like 10 years. And then when I was moving across the country from New York to California, I reached out. I still would call her, but I hadn't seen her physically in 10 years. And I said, I'm moving across the country. Are you willing to meet and have a conversation? And so we did. Um, I went with somebody. I didn't want to go alone. And my mother brought her mother, thought that was interesting. And yeah, so we had the conversation, and that was it. I mean, we didn't get into the conversation of the abuse. We just got into the conversation of I haven't spoken to her in 10 years. And there was issue of trust and whatnot.
Now, you did say earlier, and I don't recall the name of it, but you did have a condition or a diagnosis. How was that, either affected, exacerbated, by everything happening to you? And what, tell us a little bit about the diagnosis itself and, what you were kind of just naturally going through with that condition.
Yeah, absolutely. So my mom contracted German measles when she was pregnant with me. They tell you to abort the baby. She chose not to. Most babies are born blind, deaf, and all sorts of deformities. It's called congenital rubella syndrome. It affects all your bones, all your organs, and all your skin. To date, I've had 67 surgeries. I have a port in my chest, which is how I hydrate. Um, I've had surgery on my stomach. I've had both my knees have been replaced, both my shoulders have been replaced. And that's from a large part due to the congenital rubella syndrome. I think the abuse part or the trauma part from when I was younger just exacerbated the condition because I had a lot of autoimmunes. And when you get a lot of autoimmune disease, stress exacerbates it. So um, it just makes it cranky. So I've lived with that. I have a very long list of diagnoses, unfortunately. And I do Eastern and Western medicine. I truly believe Western medicine has a place. If you break a bone, they can fix it. They have cures for things that, that actually work. I believe Eastern medicine is a great tool and really valuable. I prefer to go as natural as I can. Unfortunately, there's some medications, Western wise, that I have to be on, which are heart related. So I can't play, a gamble on a holistic approach with my heart. So I do take the heart meds. Um, and I do take a lot of nutraceuticals and supplements just because I want to do whatever I can to keep my body as strong as I can every single day. Um, I use red light every single day. I meditate every single day. I do, when I see a doctor and there's a problem, they know me so well now. It's kind of like, okay, what can I do? What is it that I can do to help this particular situation? And they'll run down a list with me and they'll say, okay, maybe this nutraceutical might help, or this supplement might help, or maybe um, this program, there's different programs uh, with red light and whatnot. But the thing with the key with red light is you want pulse technology. The pulse technology lets the red light get deep into your tissues. And if I wasn't doing the red light, my inflammatory markers would be super elevated. And they've been elevated my entire life until I got red light. And the minute I start doing red light, my inflammatory markers almost are at nil. So it's pretty fascinating once you start getting to the holistic technologies. There's so much out there, and also Reiki energies and all the different healing modalities. There's tons of a plethora of modalities for healing, and your emotions do play a key role in your healing of your traumas and your emotions. I'm a big proponent of um, AIM, which is A Course in Miracles. I truly believe that there's a higher power. I journal every day. I do gratitude journaling. I journal out what I want to when I want to bring into my life. I basically have mapped out my life so it is as positive as I possibly can have it, because when I'm in pain, I need to have a positive mindset. So if something's going on, I'm having a flare, I still need to show up. So in order to do that, that means I have to have a lifestyle that I eat extremely healthy. I eat organic. I work out every day, like I said, and I do everything I possibly can. And I have to see a lot of specialists, a cornea specialist, and all these different eye specialists, because the congenital rubella syndrome, the biggest things it messes with is your eyes and your ears. I have hearing aids. Um, I've had senior hearing since I was born. I have macular degeneration. I was born with cataracts. So the congenital rubella syndrome plays massive damage on the eyes. I have macular degeneration since I was born. The cataracts were there when I was born. So I had to have, a lot of surgery to fix that, even to get rid of the cataracts when I got older. And I couldn't do it when I was young. That I wait till I was older. Which was a whole trippy experience, because my whole life I saw blurry. I didn't know, like, vivid colors and scenery. And when I did the cataract surgery, it was like, oh my God, like, this is so vivid. It was like first time I was seeing colors. It was amazing. Um, and I don't take that for granted. That's the thing. You have to be grateful for what you have. I'm grateful that I can see. It's not the best vision. I'm blind at night. And even with glasses, I have 40/40, yet I still show up. I still, get up. I still do the things I need to do. I still have my phone calls and my meetings with clients. I do the podcast, which I love to do and help and inform people. I used to do a lot of PSAs, public service announcements on veteran suicide, regular suicide. I attempted suicide 3 times because of all the crap I went through. And that's when I said I had a choice point, right? Choice point was do I choose to live or die?
I want to ask, I want to go back 67
Mhm.
surgeries.
Mhm.
How just physically the did the 67 surgeries take a toll on your body?
Um, I'm kind of really resilient. I kind of bounce back pretty fast. And I think that's in part due to my attitude. When I'm in the hospital, not the woe is me, victimhood, like the energy is different. I choose to want to get out of there as fast as possible. And yes, I'm in pain. Yes, I take the pain meds. And yes, I'm working my butt off to get out of there as soon as possible. So I think having that type of mindset makes it easier to get through what I went through. Um, Unfortunately, the only really horrible things about all the surgeries is like I wouldn't be able to work out for a month and then I'd gain some weight, so I went through that whole yo-yo thing for a while, which is really annoying. And now I've stayed at my normal weight for quite a while, which I'm really excited about. Um, but unfortunately, when I get flares or I get like something that's really bad, then I will not be able to work out for however long. Or like when I had to replace my shoulder, that was, a 2-year recovery. Every limb was a 2-year recovery. So both knees being replaced was a 2-year recovery. Both shoulders being replaced, each one was a 2-year recovery. I did them all 6 months apart. So that was very interesting as well. I actually moved in with a really dear friend and did all 4 surgeries, knee, shoulder, shoulder, while I was living with her because I know I needed to have someone and have that support and stability. So yeah, it just, I have a really um I don't know. I think I've had so many surgeries. To me, it's kind of like next. I don't get like freaked out and traumatized. I was traumatized years ago from a few surgeries, and then after that, I have typed up 4 different papers everywhere I go. Here's my medication list. Here's my brief medical history. Here's all my surgery lists, and here's a sheet just for the anesthesiologist because that's where I got traumatized. Them putting the mask on my face literally was like I felt like I was dying. And that happens to do with the abuse, having the hands over my mouth and stuff like that. I don't like anywhere near my face. I got choked once too, and so I do not like anywhere near my face. So I had to teach the anesthesiologist how to put me to sleep, and that means you have to put in the IV first, and when I'm completely out, then you can put the face mask on with the oxygen, but not till I'm out. So and that's again, teaching people. That's one thing I love to do is teach people how to self advocate. We need to advocate for ourselves, and that takes effort. And I tell everyone, I don't care who you are, even if you don't have a complex medical history, you should have that list with you in case something happens. It should be in your car. Medications, medical history, surgery list, and your wishes. If you have a DNR, if you have a living will, if you have a living trust, whatever those things are, those things should be in your glove compartment in case you have an accident or something.
Absolutely. Um, what was my question? Oh, was there any how do I want to put it? Was the quality of care that you were receiving regarding your condition, was how was that being as though you were in a different country? Did you run into
Yeah.
any issues with that?
Well, the interesting part was my surgeries didn't start, so I came back to the United States. So I didn't have surgeries when I was younger. I had a lot of medical complications, and I was getting injections twice a week just for allergies alone and other stuff, um, uh, nebulizer treatments and whatnot. In terms of actual surgeries, they didn't start until I was 16, and that all started with my uterus with endometriosis and ovarian cysts. And yes, you can have kids. No, you can't have kids. And I eventually had to have a hysterectomy when I was 25 years old, and I was put into medical menopause when I was 25 years old.
Damn, you going through it. Wow.
That's why I
Um,
kind of have a cavalier attitude. I think I've been through so much. I can't afford to be in the pity party. So I kind of have this cavalier like next attitude just because I have to.
so yeah, wow, yes, you have to. So 25 hysterectomy. Did you ever want kids?
I was pregnant once. No idea I was pregnant because they kept telling me I couldn't get pregnant. And the baby wasn't growing right, and I had to have a medical abortion. And after that, I wasn't a candidate for IVF because I only had one ovary left at that point. My other ovary had kept a growing cyst and would implode, and so they took a half out, and that grew up and almost imploded, and then they had to take the whole ovary out. And then I only had one ovary at that point. And for IVF, they give you drugs so you get more eggs, right? And which causes more cysts, which means I could die again. So that wasn't an option. So it was like I had to sign paperwork establishing that I knew I could not get pregnant. And at that point, like I said, I only had one ovary, and I never even got my period. So it was the chances of that happening were nil. I had so many adhesions. My whole uterus was glued to my abdominal wall from the endometriosis. They had to go in 10 times. I had 10 surgeries just on my uterus. They kept going in and, cleaning up the endometriosis, suspending my uterus, doing this, doing that. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm like, I'm so done. I no longer want to be in 2 weeks out of every month.
I was going to ask, is
Endometriosis
that
sucks.
painful?
Yeah, endometriosis is akin to appendicitis. That's how bad it is. You are doubled over in extreme pain, and you go to the hospital, and the first thing they say to you is you have appendicitis. And I'm like, nope, it's just another ovarian cyst. Of course, they do the ultrasound. There's fluid in the cul-de-sac, which is where the fluid goes when cysts burst. And it's extremely painful because the fluid is very toxic. So yeah, you're doubled over. And the first thing they do is scan you for appendicitis. But I already knew. So every time I go in and go, oh, just another ovarian cyst bursting, you know, it's just kind of like I know my body really well at this point.
Now, is this news coming at a time when you're partnered? How are you? Where is life at this point? And what parts of your life was this news affecting?
Yeah, so that was with my first husband, and we weren't married yet. And how I found out was got a marriage license, and in New York they do a blood test at time to check if and check or not. And that's how I found out I was pregnant. Because there's no way I would have known I was pregnant. Because like I said, I never got my period anyway. My stomach wasn't growing, the baby wasn't growing, so I would have never known until something happened.
Um, how many medicines do you take with all the conditions? Because I know you do a
Like
holistical for
14.
14, and that's not including the holistical medicines, is it?
No, I take about 30 supplements a day.
Holy crap! How do you how do you go every day taking all of those
I
medications?
split it up. I do morning and I do nighttime. Every Sunday, I fill my pill boxes, and one is medicines and one is supplements. And first thing in the morning, I take my morning supplements, and then before I go to bed, I do my evening medicine and supplements.
Wow, that's a lot to. It's just a lot. It's a lot to deal with. How many different doctors are you seeing?
Right now, about 6 different specialists.
Mm.
I have a primary that I've been going to for like 10 years. He knows me implicitly well. And I fire people that call me a hypochondriac because I'm like, here's every CT, here's every MRI, here's every surgery note, so it can go away. I get profiled a lot when I go to ER because I have scars everywhere. It's like crazy because I think you're there for opiates or something. And I'm like, no, I'm not there for that. Um, so that's why I carry all that paperwork too, because I'm tired of people looking at that long list and then going, oh, yeah, she must be a freaking hypochondriac to have all that stuff wrong with her. And I'm like, yeah, I wish. I wish it was all like fictitious. That'd be awesome.
Um, oh, I don't even know what question I want to ask next. Um, uh, um, can we talk a little bit about your attempted suicides? You attempted three.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, three
Can
times.
can you
Um, the,
can you talk
um,
about a little bit how the the start of the attempt of the suicides, what pushed
yeah.
you
So there
there?
was this kid at school. There was this kid at school that kept teasing me, and he said, would say stuff to me, and I said, and he said, well, if you feel that way, then kill me. Like he's like, talking like that. And so one day I actually, my father had a gun, and I took it to school, and yeah, and I tried to kill myself in the back trails. I pointed it at him. Of course, I wasn't going to kill him, and I turned around on myself.
Did it fire or?
No, I didn't fire it
No.
or anything. It was just,
Okay.
like, it was, I was going to, and then he talked me down, type of thing. And then the other two just involved was just because I wanted out. Um, and I checked myself into a place, got the help that I needed. And yeah, got over a lot of traumas and chose to have different things. And, I did what I had to do. But I use my experience. I don't hide any of my stuff from my clients. Like I actually use my experiences. And the thing is, why would you go to a coach who's never, if you have trauma, why do you go to someone who hasn't experienced trauma? They're not going to understand where you're coming from. To me, you go to someone who's been through what you've been through. Obviously, it's not going to be identical. Obviously, it's not going to be the severity that there's so many levels in between there, right? However, me, I want to work with someone who's it. And and I'm not going to judge them for having all that stuff. Yeah, I took a gun to school. Okay, judge me. I mean, I was a tortured soul. I was in. I didn't even get to. I When I came back to the United States is when I went to high school. So I was in Mexico. I was in primary school, and in Venezuela I was in fourth and fifth, and then in Brazil I was in sixth, seventh, eighth. Right. So between all that travel and all the different things, you just you just get up and go the next day. You really have to choose it. And it was the second time where I got found. The second time I tried committing suicide, I was found halfway in my apartment and halfway in the hallway, so I passed out. And obviously someone saw me and called 911, and I got taken to the hospital, and then of course I got put on 72 hold. um, and then I got help. And the third time was the same thing, and then I finally got the help that I needed. I got out of a relationship that was really toxic, and went to a church, handed over a folder saying, "Here's everything you need to know." Like, okay, let's do this.
That's kind of where my next question was going. Um, you did say at the beginning, just kind of your upbringing and things that you experienced when you were younger, kind of led you to similar choices in dating and relationships. Now, the relationship that you had with your first husband, or even at the time when he was, just a significant other, was that,
No,
one of
actually,
the.
yeah, that's really interesting. So Mm, I loved him and I still do. I mean, I would be with him in a second if I could. It was just after I lost the baby, I was never the same. I just couldn't stay in that relationship. And then after that, it was just, you know, minor relationships. And it wasn't until I bought a house and I've been dating a guy for a year, he was allergic to alcohol. I'm like, bingo, he can't drink alcohol. Awesome. That must mean if he's allergic to alcohol, he can't do drugs. He's been at the same job for 18 years. He worked for the city. So I'm like, okay, he works the same job for 18 years. Well, once he moved into my house, my life as I knew it became no longer my life. And this is the relationship that was the one that I never spoke to my mother afterwards, where I finally made the choice point of literally, literally changing my life. Um, and I go to the post office and I feel a tap on my shoulder and you go, oh, there you are. So this was a person that was constantly stalking me and, you know, and he had been on the deed to my house and he failed. And this is very interesting. He failed the drug test. USAA goes to people's homes and drug tests if you want a life insurance policy. And of course I bought a house. So it was all my money. I bought a house. I got a life insurance policy, to cover the house. And I was clean. The drug test came back fine for me. On his, he failed with cocaine in his system, which I thought to be very, very interesting. And I immediately then said to him, you need to give me back the house because you failed the drug test. Therefore, I can't get life insurance with you on it. I can't get the insurance on the house, not life insurance, but the insurance on the house. I can't get it if you're on the deed. And so that's when my life became absolute hell. He kept saying, I know what you're doing. You're trying to get rid of me. You're trying to get a divorce. I'll never divorce you. No one can have you. I'll burn the house down. I'll kill you. So, and so, yeah. And my life, like I said, it became just extremely dangerous. And so one day I started collecting notes and started doing a lot of digging um, about crimes in the area to see who was tied to any of them. And I found a couple connections. I found a previous restraining order. Now, normally you're dating guys, it's not like you're going to do a dig deep on them, right? You're not going to hire a private investigator and do a deep dive. Well, in this case, I did once I was in the situation and I found the restraining order of the previous woman. I tried connecting with the previous woman. She was petrified. She wouldn't talk to me. Well, eventually I went to church, the women's center. I handed them a folder. And like I said, here's everything in here. If I don't wake up tomorrow morning, here's everything you need to know. And so I gave the folder to her. She looked at it. She called the DA's office and the DA said to me, you're not leaving anywhere. You're staying right where you are. And they proceeded to perform like a sting where I had to like stop my car and call him and say, hey, my car won't start. Can you meet me? Because they couldn't go into the house because he had a military collection. So they couldn't go into the house because there's weapons in the house. So they had to get him out of the house. So they used me to get him out of the house. Well, unfortunately, they didn't have both exits covered. So he managed to get to my car. So he knew I was the one that turned him in. So then my life became even more hell. He was arrested, but he got out on bail. But then he went to grand jury. He was indicted on 29 counts and he went to jail and he died in jail. And that's when my life turned. That's when after that whole experience, I was like, you girl, you need to get your shit together and you need to get help because this is not life. Having someone control you and going through all the abuse and all the drama, that's not life.
No, it's not. I want to go back a little bit because I want to ask. I want to ask this question
Yeah.
because I want folks that are thinking about changing their life, taking their lives. Hopefully, they can change their decision and choice and know how valuable their life is. When you had a gun to your head, what was going through your mind, and what was going through your mind?
Yeah. At that point, I literally was just wanted silence. I didn't want to hear anything anymore. I just wanted silence. It was like one of those things where I was just done and I just wanted silence. And the only way I could think of getting silence was to kill myself because if I was awake, there's constant noise or there's constant drama around me or, whatever. And, I realized, I got into a lot of the spirituality. I studied A Course in Miracles and a lot of other things, Eckhart Tolle, and I really got into philosophy and spirituality and started processing and, forgiving and doing everything I needed to do so that I could have a quality life.
And then the boy that you had the gun, the one that talked you out of it.
Yeah.
What was his reaction afterwards?
Yeah. So, and this is the crazy part. I never even got in trouble. Okay. So someone in the school saw the gun, told someone at the school that there was a gun in the locker in my locker. An official comes and grabs it, takes it out. They send me home. And the only thing that happened was I got yelled at for making them embarrassed. In other words, how dare you, it wasn't about the gun. It wasn't about that I was, not wanting to be around. It was that I created an uncomfy situation for them. And he was just basically, the kid was like, "You're crazy." He ran like hell. He's like, "You're freaking crazy." He ran. But like I said, nothing happened. I mean, I got called to the principal's office. He says, "You're going home." He goes, we understand, that there's this in the locker. And yeah, so it was crazy that nothing was done. Nothing was done. Nothing.
They didn't even call your parents?
My parents basically, like I said, had just basically said, "How dare you embarrass us like that?" That's
Hmm.
it. So I didn't get in trouble. I didn't get suspended from school. I didn't get in trouble with my parents except for the fact I embarrassed them. And so that was kind of, I was a tortured soul. I felt like no one was listening, that, no one cared. And they were just saying, "Oh, I was a black sheep and that you're the troubled child." And then you realize that I was really suffering, so it was, instead of being labeled, and that happens a lot, instead of being labeled the black sheep and treating people like that beneath you, you need to step up and meet people where they're at and, give people some grace. You never know what someone's walking through at any given moment. And I always tell people that there's always someone somewhere that has it worse than you do at any given moment. So you got to think about that. There's someone somewhere, third world country, whatever, that are going through horrific things that we don't even have here, right? And you think about that, where they cut off the clitoris and, South Africa and stuff like that. I mean, just crazy stuff where people get mutilated and, you think about those things and it's like, wow.
Now, was that the person um, that went to jail? Were they, obviously you said they discovered that you were the one that kind of assisted the police catch him. How long were you being contacted by him, or
Yeah.
affected or bothered by him, and in what ways?
So when he first got out, when he was in jail, he broke the restraining order. He kept trying to contact me. When he got out on bail, he tried coming to the house, and he had other people trying to contact me. I was getting death threats in my mailbox. "How dare you? You committed the ultimate sin. You turned in your husband." There was an article written up about it. Got so bad I had to sell my house, and it got so bad they couldn't sell the house because my house became the house known for this, trauma, right? And so it was all over the news. I had to get 3 brokers to try and list it and sell it. And when they couldn't sell it, I had to give it back to the bank because, I couldn't sell it. No one wanted to buy it because of all the, the ties and all the energy that was around it of the case. I would say it's probably like 6 months in total. He wasn't, and I honestly, I block out a lot of like dates just for sanity purposes. So I can't honestly tell you like exactly when um, he passed. Um, but I know it wasn't a really long time. He was in jail, but he wasn't in there a significant long time before it happened. They say he hung himself. Other people's theory is that he got shanked. I don't know. Um, I just, uh, it's just, people that abuse people to take power like that is just what it does to people is just crazy. I mean, you don't want to trust anyone after that. You're in the post office and someone taps you on the shoulder and goes, there you are. Like, whoa. And the scary part was after he died, all those people that wouldn't talk to me before finally started talking to me and would tell me, "Do you know that he was across the street at the bar while you were in here? Do you know that when you were doing this, he was doing this? Do you know he called me and said that if I still contact you, he'd off me?" So he started threatening all the people in my life that were helping me. Even the counselor at the church told me after he died, because no one would talk to me who was alive or whether he was in jail. It was scary. And she told me, he said the same thing. He never said the word kill. He'd always used the word off you. So because, if you say kill on the phone, I mean, obviously it isn't a good thing to say. Obviously they're going to report it. So he would just say, "Oh, just just a normal conversational conversation that if you contact her again, I'll off you." And I have so many
So
people tell me that.
so he threatened, he scared all, one person scared all these folks, and no one
Yep.
stepped up to report him. What
Nope.
how did you feel when they all started to try to talk to you after he passed away? Did you have words with them? I'm
Yeah,
like,
I did.
don't.
Yeah, I did. Some of them, I mean, honestly, I was pissed because I was like, if you knew this, there's a way you could have gotten in touch with me. You could have told me at the Reiki. I mean, I was doing Reiki circles and getting Reiki certifications. Someone could have passed me notes. Someone could have done something or somehow gotten gotten to me somehow. I don't know. And that's hindsight, right? Because I don't know. Based on that, people are telling me that he was threatening them. I can understand why they possibly would not want to talk to me when he was alive because they were scared. I mean, if he had a previous restraining order and that woman wouldn't speak to me when he was alive, imagine what he did to her and she wouldn't talk to me or tell me about it, except that she was a captor. So,
Gosh. What was your, I'm not sure, how long he stayed in jail before passing, but what was that, moment like for you finding that out? How did you feel? How long ago was this? Like, how, give us the
yeah,
deets
so
on this.
he died in the late 80s. And my dad also died in the late 80s, early 80s. I had like 3 deaths around there. My grandfather died, then 2 weeks later, my dad died, then 2 weeks later, my grandfather died, and then he died. Um, so yeah. So yeah, it was the late 80s. And um, like I said, he wasn't in jail long before he passed. And the biggest thing for me was, like I said, having my own family not to believe me. My mother was visiting him in jail. He told my mother that I laced his food with cocaine and that's why he failed the drug test. My mother chose to believe him. So that's why I didn't speak to her for 10 years. It was really hard. I mean, it was, and they just figured because I'd been in previous relationships, and my mom's modality was, well, if it was so bad, why didn't you leave? Well, it's not like I didn't try to leave. Trust me. I mean, every time I turned around, there he was, right? So imagine, I'm out and he's across the street. I'm at the post office, he's behind me. Yeah, so yeah.
Did did you feel betrayed by your parents? And um were you able to ever, after all this, after you're older, to confront your parents and tell them how you felt?
Well, my dad passed away before any of that. And my mom, I didn't speak to her for 10 years. And when I did have a conversation with her afterwards, I just said to her, you know, like, I can't believe that you took his side. And she's like, yeah, but you've just always been a troubled child. And so that's the thing. My label at my house was the troubled child, that I just like to cause trouble. That was the label. And, that's why I chose to transform myself. That's why I do transformational coaching, because at some point when you've been through a lot of stuff, you have to make a choice. You have to choose whether you want to live, whether you want to die, whether you want to create, whatever you need to make decisions and you need to take action steps towards those decisions.
Absolutely. What now are your biggest challenges? What are the things that are the most kind of difficult working through in your condition? How are you kind of sustaining yourself? How have you been able to make it through? How are we here speaking to you? You have the happy disposition that you have. How? Tell us just how.
Yeah, so the how was when I finally made the choice to actually like live, and not be in victim mode and the woe is me and why this happened to me and all that negative talk, self-talk. And when I finally chose me, I took the teachings to heart from all the different courses that I got involved in. I got certifications in neurolinguistic programming, hypnotherapy, Reiki. I started doing things for myself. And it it's just one of those things where you want to, like, right now I'm in the middle of reading 4 different books. I go through these like book frenzies where it's just like I love knowledge, I love reading, I also love helping people, so that's why I kind of connected the two. I do a lot of writing. I just wrote one chapter for one book that's coming out in September, which is actually breaking the silence, so it's actually a little bit related. And so it's doing all these things that I love, where I get to write and share my story and help people, and then I
Um,
I've left
I
you
want
speechless.
to, yeah, yes, you did. How is everyday life for you? How is everyday life like for you now? With
Yeah.
still,
Yeah. So I get up in the morning and I run an IV for 2 hours. I do the same thing before I go to bed. But after that, I do all health oriented things. I work out, I do red light, I stay in the sun for an hour, and then I dive right into work. I get very early in the morning. So I'm out in the sun by 10:30. I only lay out there for an hour, come back in by 11:30, and then it's all work. And then come past, dinner time, it's back to medical land, and where I have to infuse again. Um, and I've done really well with maintaining it. Like I said, through the different modalities that I found that have helped, and I keep searching and doing whatever I can. But yeah, life is pretty good right now. I got 3 different projects coming out in September, which I'm really excited about.
What are some, of your biggest triggers still? Like for instance, how you said you don't like your face being covered. What are some things you still see or feel that, you maybe that are just kind of hard to get over or hard to, overcome, hard to forget?
The biggest one is my face, because my father also punched me in the jaw when I was in 4th grade. So I had to have 2 10-hour surgeries on my jaw, and my mouth was wired shut. So I have a lot of trauma that happened with my face. And so that still is a trigger. Like when I have to go for a brain MRI or an MRI where they put the cage over your face, that triggers me. So not like human people don't really trigger me when it comes to my face. Dentist triggers me, massively triggers me. The noise and just I have so much pain in my jaw that it's crazy. So being at the dentist is not a, so those are 2 triggers: dentist and anything to do with scans. Surgeries I don't care, because they'll knock me out anyway. So I don't have to worry about that.
um, why did your dad punch you in your jaw, and why are your
Um
jaws?
yeah, so my father had an explosive personality. He can be really, he's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant businessman. Um I still have an anonymity. My actual birth initials were SOS. And I rapidly, when I made my choice to choose me, I changed my name and changed my moniker to Cat, which all my friends called me Cat anywhere. So Carly Alyssa Thorne came from Cat, and my birth initials were SOS. So if you have those type of initials with the life I had, you imagine why you want to change it.
No, absolutely. That's like a, written in stone type of feeling on your life. So
Yep.
I completely understand that.
And that was hard too, because when I changed my name, I got such grief. My mother was kind of like, "How dare you change your name? You're killing my baby. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "This has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with your baby or your child. It has to do with, I don't want the initials of SOS anymore, and I choose me. I want to have a name that I resonate with. That's strong and powerful, and is something that I choose." And so I did.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When
I never.
I dipped to myself, 2004, moved to California, changed my name.
Awesome, awesome. And I never asked, when we were kind of talking about the childhood part, but did you have siblings? Were you an only child?
No, I have an older brother. And we're actually just kind of rekindling our relationship, which is, after my mother passed away, now both parents are dead, it's just us. We have step siblings, however, it's just me and my brother. So we've actually been working things out and talking, and I just saw him not too long ago when I went out there for the funeral. And yeah, we're working on our relationship. We never really had one kind of growing up. Like I said, I was kind of like the lone wolf. And so I didn't really have like the greatest relationship with my brother when I was younger. And I didn't really have any relationship with them after all that stuff happened too. Like I didn't speak to my mother, and it was kind of the same situation. So yeah, but now we're communicating, and yeah, it's good.
Good. We are actually, how an hour goes by fast. Well, at time. I want to ask before we close out, what advice would you give to the audience based on your personal life experience? We're not psychologists, we're not therapists. What we share is solely based off others' life experiences as a resource to help someone else. Going through everything that you went through, from being raped as a child, suicide, abuse, verbal abuse, even into relationships, into where you're now, even 67 surgeries, medical conditions, just holding your head up. What advice would you give to someone that is going through a similar situation as you, to keep their head up, to keep going, and just to stay positive?
I tell everyone, self-advocate, find someone to talk to, find a church, find any place you can go to. There's so many resources out there for free counseling, or to get you to the right place. There is strength in asking for help. It is not weak. And I encourage anyone, if you're feeling depressed or suicidal or anything, you call, get on your phone and you start dialing people that you know. Get talking to somebody.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for being here with us this evening. We enjoyed your testimony, and we applaud your bravery for speaking with us this evening. As we do with all of our guests, we like to give you a chance to participate in Shameless Plug. We see all of your information scrolling across the bottom here. If you can let our viewers know how they can contact you if your story resonated with them in any way, if there are any projects or topics that you advocate for, if there's any projects you have for yourself, anything for sale, anything that you want to put on Front Street, you have the floor.
Yeah, so basically, I'm just all about helping people. I love my transformational life coaching. I work with people and individually building something that's just designed for them in mind, body, spirit, and business. Because if one thing's out of whack, something else is out of whack. Trust me. So I work with them as a whole person, as not just like, okay, I'm suffering here. Like, well, no, let's go back and see what's creating that suffering here. So I work with them as a holistic approach. I do have a very, I also deal with a lot of business people, lawyers, doctors. So it's not just anybody. I do deal with anybody. But what I'm saying is I've dealt with all types of people, all genres. It's not like I have clientele that are just older or younger. It's literally a mix. It's whoever, like you said, who resonates with me, because we all resonate with someone differently. And anyone can go to my website, which is carlyathorne.com, and reach out to me, send me an email. More than happy to have a conversation, more than happy to steer you to resources if you need them.
Carly, thank you so much for your testimony, and we appreciate you being a guest on Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast. Please hold before we leave, and say we're going to keep sharing life experiences, ain't we?
That's right.
That's right. Please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast. We are a resource base. We share all different kind of life experiences. You name it, we almost have it all. And we just got something new from Carly, a condition that we had never heard before. So we've just added a new resource to the podcast, and hopefully Carly's testimony will help you. We will see you each and every Monday at 8 p.m. ET. So make sure you tune in. Subscribing is for free. So come and support us. Y'all have a blessed evening.